Welcome to the Modern Hippie podcast, where we'll be exploring all of my favorite boundary-pushing people and topics surrounding consciousness, psychedelics, mental performance, functional medicine, living in alignment, and so much more. I'm your host, Barrett Perlman, a former pro wakeboarder turned body worker, energy healer, and well, a modern hippie. And I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the Modern Hippie podcast. I am joined today by someone incredibly special to me. This is Matt Powell. He is a liver of life. He is a men's health advocate. He is on his spiritual journey, an incredible wordsmith, which I hope that we'll get a taste of here today. And Matt, you and I met on my trip in Peru in October. We were on the 10-day guided tour together through Sacred Earth Journeys with Freddie Puma, the medicine man. And we had just incredible times together. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, Barrett. Amazing. Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, you were such a crucial part of my Peru tour because I sort of kind of break it down until it was like two parts. Like the first half was the tour that you and I were on, which really prepped me to heal, to shed things that I had brought with me, to start to deep dive into my relationship with relationships, which was something that I went there to work on. And you were just this incredible cosmic soul tribe member who supported me all along the way. And we did Machu Picchu together. And it's for my listeners who don't know, I was on mushrooms. And so I was just like, Maddie, don't lose me. And
Yeah, we did do it together. Yeah, it was amazing.
yeah. And yeah, let's tell everyone about our Machu Picchu time.
Oh, that was such a special day. First of all, like Machu Picchu was it just blew all expectations. Hey, like you sort of see postcards and on the internet or whatever, but when like just driving up in the bus and going up those roads and through the clouds almost, and then actually being there was just yeah, by far and away probably the coolest place I've been to, I would say. Yeah, it's just so amazing. And obviously getting to share it with you was just so much fun. And we were running around like Indiana Jones there, just diving, going through the back paths. And we've obviously found that little spot to have a little cheeky 5-minute meditation, completely private, which was just really special and profound.
Unbelievable.
When I have meditated since, I sort of recall that with you up there on the mountain, and sort of try and tap into that energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really special.
It was really special. And especially that spot where we were like kind of at the end of our little tour group and you were like, Barrett, over here. And we just like ducked off on this one level that kind of overlooked most of Machu Picchu. And for whatever reason, nobody came by. And it got really silent and you could hear the birds chirping. And it was just had like this little bit of like fog up in the upper clouds that kind of came through. So it wasn't terribly sunny. It was just still, but the energy was so intense. And you and I sat there for quite a few minutes in silence, just soaking it all in. And that was probably one of my favorite moments of the entire trip. So
Definitely, and remember when Puma got us all together and we all sort of joined arms and linked arms as a group hug there at the end there, and he said that beautiful little sort of speech, just talking about sort of the crystal condor and opening the heart chakra, and that was one of the highlights for me. And I really feel that was a catalyst for me, and that it's happened since there over the last few months. I just spent a really nice, wholesome, nourishing Christmas with the fam, 5 days with my parents, which can often be, really intense spiritual work, sort of getting triggered by mom and dad or whatever. But I just had a really nice time with them, and I was really conscious and really present. And I was reflecting about that time in Peru. I was like, oh wow, maybe that did have, was a had an impact on me, and how I was relating with my parents, who, like I
Mm,
said, often can be a catalyst for parents are hilarious, but just to trigger
sure.
me in years previous, where we just had a really nice time together. So yeah.
Mm, that's beautiful to hear. Yeah, parents are definitely triggering. I know my mom, especially, has been my biggest trigger. But I've worked through it. Now she's still doing her, but I've worked through it. And I'm interested to hear what inspired you to go to Peru. What was your journey to get there?
Yeah, yeah. It was actually a recommendation from a dear friend slash mentor of mine. I love those sorts of countries. I'd spent time in Asia, um, Bali, Vietnam, and in particular India. I really
Mm,
loved India, and I was contemplating going back to that part of the world. I've been in Nepal. I've been lucky to travel over the last 10 years, um, and then yeah, so as you do, you sort of think, oh, where would I love to go this year, or my next sort of trip, and Peru kept coming up on my radar and in conversations, and then I was listening to I'm not sure if you're familiar with Freddie Silva, who's on
mm-mm.
he's on the internet. He's like a sort of alternative history expert, and he talks about pyramids and crop
Ooh.
circles and energies and lots of awesome stuff. But he's also just really entertaining and charismatic, and I love listening to him. Anyway, he also goes on the Sacred Earth journey tours to ancient Egypt, and so I jumped
Mm.
online and was just looking at his work and his offerings, and then I saw Peru pop up as well on the website, and then as ended up clicking on Peru, and it looked amazing and really resonated. So I hadn't been to South America, and yeah, that's kind of the story behind it.
Mm. Wonderful. What did you think of South America? What's your takeaway?
Oh, it was amazing. I loved it. Hey, I kind of wish that I had maybe a one-way ticket, or sort of had sort of explored it for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, longer.
Mm. Sure.
Maybe next time or another time later in life. But yeah, it was just such a just the energy in Peru was just really special, and
Mm.
everyone was really friendly. When you're just walking around the place and just the energy feels really special. For me,
Yeah.
I really resonated with the mountains. I live along the beautiful beaches here in Australia, and it's a amazing part of the world, and I love the ocean. But there's also similarly that mountain energy is equally magnificent. And I just remember walking through some of those valleys that we were in Urumbamba. Uh, yeah, just some of those amazing sort of views and mountainscapes, and just being humbled by that
Mm.
mountain energy. I really resonated with them. So yeah, really special part of the world. Hey.
Oh my God. You're absolutely right. The energy there is so incredible and so grounding. And while you're there, you just feel like you're tapped into tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years of practice and things that we don't even know that they've tried to carry the stories of to this era, but haven't always all quite made it to 2023. So, yeah. And you have been on your healing journey quite a bit. We talked a bit about this in Peru, and what sparked you to get into deep diving into your own personal work?
Yeah, I I would suggest, now knowing what I know, that it's perhaps been many lifetimes of work, and that I've
Mm,
awakened and remembered, the purpose to this life, where we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. I think
Mm,
that might be a Ram Dass quote. I can't recall that one, but yeah, I really resonate with that. We are on these spiritual journeys. This is the curriculum, this third dimension life, which is amazing, and the dualities and the pain and the suffering and the joy and the happiness and everything in between is just part of this curriculum. And it's about learning and growing and gaining experiences. But yeah, for me, it started, I think, from a young kid, to be honest. It was always there. And I always enjoyed listening to some stories and, just even sort of, when you sort of are introduced to things like Jesus as a younger kid. And, I grew up in a pretty secular, chilled out environment, but it's just like, wow, like these are pretty cool stories and what's going on here and these kind of mystical sort of stories. And then when I was in my earlier 20s, I was fortunate enough to go, as I mentioned, traveling to parts of Asia in particular, and then eventually India. And yeah, that was really transformative. It was,
mm,
it was, yeah, akin to, I suppose, a bit of a psychedelic experience, sort of being walking around the streets of India and some of these countries and just really questioning ways of life back home in Australia. And I love my life here in Australia, but it's a certain way of life, but it's not the be all and end all. It's
mm,
the whole kind of path of going to school and studying and maybe getting a degree and getting a job and getting a mortgage and all that, the checklist of the matrix. Um, might be great for you if that's what you really want. But for me, I just realized like, oh, there's so many amazing ways to live life. And there's no gold medal, there's no first place. It's all just experience.
mm. That's really well said. There is no first place in this game of life. It's just really you for yourself here experiencing the reality that you create for yourself. And I love that you use that word curriculum. That's recently come on my radar from Azria Becker, who wrote the book Becoming with her husband, Benjamin Becker. And it really does take that look at how nothing in this life is a mistake, how everything is, all your failures are feedback, right? And everything that happens is just a lesson to be learned. And, by calling it curriculum, it really implies that you're showing up and you're doing the work around those lessons and you're sitting with them and you're paying attention to them as they happen. And for me personally, that's really helped me to reframe the, the fucked up shit that happens from time to time as and I'm starting to learn from it quicker, which I tend to have a really thick skull, so like you got to teach me things at least 3 4 times, especially the hard lessons. Like I like to hit my head quite a lot and then figure it out, but I'm starting to get those lessons faster and faster now by really paying attention to the curriculum. And
Yeah,
what do you do
totally resonate with
mm,
that. And I picked it up somewhere along the journey, but the lessons will keep reappearing in your life until you actually learn from them or what the
mm,
universe is trying to tell you.
mhm,
It might take a year or a couple of years later, but it's going to keep reappearing until you outgrow what it's meant to teach you, which I think is really powerful. And I was just reading yesterday the metaphor of the lotus flower, and a really beautiful just sentence or phrase is to sit in the mud. And a
mm,
lotus grows in the mud through water, and then it turns into a flower eventually. It's kind of this expansion of consciousness type analogy, but the beginning of it is the sitting in the mud part. And it's also just a sitting part. It's not fighting, it's not wrestling in the mud. It's just, I visualize Buddha just sitting there with his legs crossed and that sort of sort of a smile or smirk on his face, just sitting in the mud, whatever life's throwing at him. And you just sort of accept it and have a little bit of a cheeky giggle and, and go through the journey. Yeah.
mhm. I love that particular analogy because I have one of my best friends, like my sister, her name's Michelle, and she just recently had a house fire in her house and she got second and third degree burns all over her hands. And she was doing something to remove the karmic trauma on her family of fires, like all through her maternity maternal line, they've had really intense problems with house fires, with significant others dying in house fires or them dying in fire. And so she wanted to remove this from her line and was doing candle work around it, caught her house on fire, put it out actually, but kind of sacrificed her hands in the meantime. And she's been sitting with the beauty of that being removed. It's done now. And that was all that she had to suffer for it. But she's been looking at her hands like the lotus flower, because all of the skin had to be essentially removed from them. And that's, I guess, how lotus flowers blossom. They have this outer film on them, and then it has to come off in order to become the beautiful flower. And the symbology and the lesson, the curriculum she's finding and what happened is that she's now finally removed that outer skin to fully blossom as that lotus flower. And I think that's a great example of looking at the fucked up shit in our lives as curriculum. And this pretty awful thing that happened. I mean, she's 2 weeks out from it having happened, and she's going to have surgery actually next week now on one of her hands and have to be in the hospital for another week or two. But she's able to step back and go, no, this is actually a really beautiful thing that's happening, and she's doing her best to suffer with a smile on her face through it, and learn and deeply learn. What's some of the curriculum that's been showing up for you lately?
Yeah, it's a powerful story. Thanks for sharing. It sounds reminds me of the phoenix, sort of literally there with
Mm.
the fire,
Hmm.
re-arising, resurrecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, curriculum for me. Straight up, to be vulnerable and open and honest with you. Probably just a sense of deep independence, but it almost borders sometimes on loneliness for me.
Mm.
Uh, long, interesting journey over the last couple of years. Absolutely no regrets, but I've just really shifted from friendships and relationships. And as I get older and maybe a little bit wiser, and my circle gets smaller and smaller, and it's sort of the stage now where I have probably two or three really beautiful friends. But my family has also moved down the coast, so sometimes I yeah, it's sort of just a craving to sort of be in the tribe, with friends and
Mm.
family. And there's I think it was a word. It might have been called like a avatar depression or something, a bit of a phrase or something like that. But sort of
Mm.
just um, people going on and watching Avatar and then kind of being like, oh man, I wish I was living like the Navi people or whatever they were called, in these tribes. And I kind of wish that as well sometimes, being a bit of a hunter gatherer and out there with my brothers. And
Mm.
we're stuck in this or I'm stuck in this sort of modern world in my apartment and so on and so forth. And I would say being alone but not lonely, but still, I'm a human being and I
Mm.
wrestle with that. And sometimes I'd love to share the journey with a beloved and have a family one day. I'm sure I'll get there, but it's just you mentioned what's the curriculum for me at the minute, and it's just sitting, being patient, and I guess just raising my vibration and frequency and being the best, most open, loving version of myself. And then just sort of the right people will stick when they come and hang around. And I've met a lot of beautiful people over the last 12-18 months, like yourself as well. So
Mm.
that's what I'm wrestling with.
Oh, yeah. I totally feel you on that. It's like once you raise your frequency, the world can become a very lonely place until that cosmic tribe, as I'm calling it, starts to stick. Um, I've been, my curriculum lately has been in a similar area where, when I was a pro wakeboarder, I loved to just date other people who like shred. And so wakeboarders, BMXers, whatever, like as long as you're, this is not like as long as you were good at your sport, but I was good at my sport. And so we tended to flock together. And that was like who I was really attracted to. And now where I'm at, I'm much spiritually deeper. I'm much more emotionally intelligent. and I really do need a partner who can match me at that level. And the other day, like about a month ago, I was really down about someone I was starting to see a little bit who didn't work out. And then I kind of prayed to the universe to, just send me someone I can surf with. Come on. And met someone in the water the next day who was super hot, super young, super ripped. And I was like, cool. This is exactly what I asked for. I was like, I know this, he doesn't seem
Venus
that
is in there.
enlightened. Yeah. So I kind of follow that a little bit. And, he was too young for me. He was probably too hot for me as well. And like there were things that like didn't quite line up. And I wanted and needed a companion at that moment so badly that I really stumbled on failed this test from the universe. And it very promptly kicked me in the ass because it very quickly turned out that he had a girlfriend who he had just then cheated on with me. And I was like, fuck, like that's not what I wanted to do. That's not what new Barrett does. Like old Barrett habits. I hate to say I did that a lot and didn't give a shit, but I kind of did that a lot and didn't give a shit. But like new Barrett really cares. And the person I am now believes that like girls don't need to be treated that way. And then to watch him turn around and try to tell her that she was crazy because she started messaging me on Instagram. It was like super intense, super fast. And I was like, dude, how does she know that you were at my house? She's got your GPS location. She can see my place of business. Like, she is missing her calling, working for the CIA. And I actually have a lot of respect for that. And like, you're telling her now that she's crazy and you're going to create and perpetuate this mental breakdown in this girl who doesn't deserve it because her intuition's telling her one thing and she's right. And so I did end up finally talking to her and telling her what happened. And, but then I was just like, man, here it was, a perfect test from the universe. Like, okay, what are the boundaries I have set in place? They must be over 30. They must be spiritually deep. They must, meet certain checkpoints just for sanity, for adultness, for maturity. And he didn't meet pretty much all of them. And I just got that swift kick. I mean, I had to call in my psychic to do like a freezer spell to make sure that he would just leave me the fuck alone, like not come near me. I had to get my own energy healers to like get the gunk off of me from this whole situation. And um, that was a really shitty curriculum that I was like, damn, I was way past this. And
Mm.
now we're here, and it didn't necessarily feel like a setback, but it was a beautiful checkpoint that got me back to, okay, you know what? Dating's not working and I need to take a step back and I need to regroup. And, this failed curriculum happened because I wasn't happy. I wasn't whole before I tried to meet someone else. And I was looking for someone to help put a patch on my loneliness. And nope, 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 nope. Let's take it back. So, yeah, I hear you. And what do you do for your mental health?
Yeah, I resonate with that story and dating. It's a jungle out there, that's for sure. Hey, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I'll leave it at that. um, yeah, what I do for my mental health, just I guess the common checklist, but I suppose I'm pretty lucky, and it just becomes habit. And for me, a lot of it is in the physical world, or the body. I just love
Mm,
being fit and healthy. It's not necessarily about going to the gym and lifting weights, although I do enjoy that kind of that yang workout and sweating and throwing weights around. But getting fresh air, and I love spending time outdoors and in the sun and getting, like I said earlier, I live on the beach here, so I've got no excuses. A perfect morning for me is just getting up and going for a pretty good run and jumping in the ocean, and sitting in the sun for half an hour with a coffee. And that's probably
mm,
the best antidepressant, you know, out there ever. I reckon it's just sitting in the sun and just, like I said, jumping in the ocean. For me, it's pretty simple. But yeah, I just try and eat relatively healthy without being a full-on monk about it or anything like that. I like, love my chocolates and things like that. And um, yeah, just recently just trying to keep busy in terms of sort of getting out of my mind. I think a a um a common, what's the word I'm looking for? A common sort of ailment that a lot of people fall into is just getting caught up in the mind. When you're at home or you're going doom scrolling, and you just get caught up in that loop of negative thoughts and in the mind. Where when I'm busy and doing things, I tend to have tends to be in a good headspace. So look, I'm pretty
Mm.
fortunate. I do have uh, I'm in a good headspace. So um, yeah, that's kind of my answer.
Mm. Well, something you and I have been discussing a little bit is particularly men's mental health. And I know you've shared with me that you're in men's groups or a men's group. And what does that mean? What is a men's group?
So it's probably just worth breaking down um, kind of a little bit of the story behind men's in general, kind of the situation at the moment that men face,
Mm.
especially across the Western world. So, and it's something that I'm passionate about, and it led to my journey into joining a men's group. So, yeah, look, for tens of thousands of years, men and women, we lived in these tribal type communities, and there were these sacred spaces. There was the tribal space for sure around the fires and communal spaces, but then there was also a time for men's business, as it was called, and also women's business. And the women would go and possibly raise the children and do what they had to do during the day, and go down to the creek and gather things and build things and knit and sing and all those beautiful things. And the men would go off and hunt and maybe leave camp for a few days and all those sorts of things. And we would live in these tribal communities of maybe 100 or 150 people, and there would be many different roles as well. And I was talking with my roommate about this yesterday, because now we're in these strange nuclear type arrangements, these small families, or even just a couple dynamic. And
Mm.
to expect one person to be able to do all of those things that the tribe previously did is just impossible and unfair. You're not going to get that nourishment, that perhaps that masculine, energetic nourishment of hanging with your brothers from your partner, from your girlfriend, and vice versa. It's just not going to happen. You need that sacred time. And
Hmm.
I'm not talking about going to the pub and drinking beers at all. It's much much deeper and much more profound than that. And there's a beautiful author and pioneer of the men's movement. His name's Robert Bly. He wrote the book Iron John, but he describes it as it's almost this cellular exchange when men hang out with each other on a deep sort of conscious level, and our bodies feed off it. Our cells, our DNA
Mm.
actually feed off that energy when we hang out with other brothers. And that's how I feel when I spend time in those circles, and in that special time with my brothers. Is It's nourishing, and it's healing, and sometimes it is often just joyful and playful, but other times as well it is, as I said, sort of healing and so on. But yeah, to get back to the history behind it, since the Industrial Revolution, over the last couple hundred years, essentially, men and women have also had their own journey as well. But to focus on men, they've largely been removed from these tribes, the village, the farms, and we moved into factories, and we moved into the cities.
Mm.
This mass migration into cities across the developed world. And that was kind of the birth of this epidemic of loneliness and individualization. And these apartment buildings were erected, and you kind of these inner city sort of ghettos, almost, where it's four walls and alleys, and it's no longer this community. um, and it's also the separation there of men and their sons as they go off to work. Previously, sons would often, or at a certain age, maybe when they were 13 or 14 or 15, would maybe go off with their fathers to the farms or to work or the guilds or whatever they were for a good couple hundred years, many centuries, and that no longer happens. Now we have public education, and um, so there's so many, so much to talk about, so much behind it. But essentially, what it has led to is, the the state of modern masculinity today. And without going into all the statistics, I think most people are probably pretty aware of it. But there's the actual statistics in terms of domestic violence and suicide and self-harm and physical abuse and alcohol addiction and pornography addiction and all those sorts of things. And then there's also a lack of meaning and crisis and loneliness. And that leads to things like domestic violence and alcoholism and suicide and so on. So
Mm.
yeah, it's I've been checking out this space for a few years, and I really would say it's reached a crisis point where if nothing is going to be done about it, then things are only going to get worse, and that it needs to change. So yeah, I guess we can talk about how some things that I've done to, that men can implement in their lives to help if they need help. So yeah, one of them was joining a men's group, and that was it naturally came to an end. It lasted for 12 months. But the host
Mm.
actually had a child with his partner, so it sort of wrapped up beautifully. But yeah, it was just I really encourage any men out there who maybe are sort of looking for some purpose or direction or just a sense of brotherhood, to join. There's a lot of beautiful conscious men's groups out there. A lot of them are online, or yoga studios or various communities out there. And we would just get together for a week online, actually, like this, and then we caught up together physically a couple of times throughout the year. But
Cool.
yeah, it was just a space of once a week where we would catch up for an hour and just go around in the circle and just share, whatever was coming up during the week. And yeah, it was a beautiful practice. I hope I didn't
Mm.
ramble on too much there, but yeah.
No, I love your rambling. It's not a ramble at
Cool.
all. I think it's a really beautiful share. And yeah, you make a really great point about that having gone away. And there's a lot of great leaders I've heard that express having been to some of these men's groups, like Lewis Howes with the School of Greatness is just, has been a long time mentor kind of mine. And, I've gotten to meet him a few times, but his work that he's done on removing his own mask of masculinity and seeking out these other spaces with men has been really profound, and something as a woman I can never fully experience. I have been privy usually to find myself the only woman in a room full of men quite often, but it's just the fact that I'm there, the entire dynamic has changed. And yeah, I think it's really powerful that that you're doing that. I commend you for that, and they're sharing the message, because I think, especially I liked what you would you call it, the doom scroll, scrolling the
Yeah.
social media feed is a perfect name for it. It really just reinforces the idea that you're trying to live someone else's life when you look at all that stuff, and you're not putting the phone away and paying attention to what's right in front of you, because often what's right in front of you will keep you grounded in the present moment, and in the present moment usually things are pretty fine. And yeah, I would also like to encourage men to get out there and do that. And I sort of have hopes that by this mass uptick in women who are doing the deep dive into their own emotional health and spiritual health, that they're bringing the men in their lives along with them. And I also seem to see a lot of men who find sobriety finding themselves in that space as well, of like really doing the deep work. And um, actually recently went to an AA meeting with a friend when he received his 6-year chip, and I was delighted to sit in the room and hear them kind of go around, and what there was a theme word for the day, and everyone would kind of say something that was going on with them about that day. And I was like, shit, should I just keep coming back? Like, this circle's really powerful. And yeah, I think I mean, for women as well, those circles are powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I remember when I first joined my men's group, and I didn't really know what to expect, and I was sitting there, and it was time for one of the brothers to share, and he just started tearing up and expressing a deep love for his girlfriend at the time, and then he
Mm.
was just sharing and expressing how he was contemplating proposing to marry her, and he was just
Oh.
really sort of nervous and vulnerable. But I was just like, just sitting there, just blown away, like, holy shit, like this guy, this is amazing. This guy's like tearing up in front of us, and he's just so raw and beautiful, and sort of he's obviously going through this amazing sort of roller coaster of emotions, and sort of but just his ability to express it in such a deep and powerful manner. And I was like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, this is just his level, or his ability to express himself and just be vulnerable. And this was like, like I said, one of the first or second meetings that I was sort of sitting in, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, wow, like, um, and then what I realized, or discovered, is that, as the months progressed, my ability to express myself deepened. And perhaps,
Mm.
like, for example, when we were in Peru, and when I meet people, and some people mention it, but like, I believe that I have an ability to go and connect with someone maybe on a slightly deeper level quicker
Hmm.
because
For
of
sure
that
you
practice.
do.
Thank you. But yeah, it's look, it's a skill. The point is, like, it's a skill you can practice, and you can learn. And being
Hmm.
in these sacred spaces, and it might just be, I know that there are some groups, some men's groups, where it's just a few friends catch up and go for a swim at 6:30 in the morning, once a week or once a month or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything too formal. But yeah, my point is that, as the time progressed, and for some men, it might take months. They just actually sit there and they don't say anything. They're just getting comfortable in that space. Everyone's on their own journey. But it's just
Mm.
that, that for me, it was this ability to express myself, and that gets into sort of throat chakra type sort of work, and just an ability to express myself and connect with others. But yeah, like, as I mentioned, over the last 18 months, when I'm out and about, or maybe at certain gatherings, and I've had some really beautiful connections, because I'm able to maybe be a little more open and a little more vulnerable, and as you mentioned, sort of calling that soul tribe, and meet beautiful people. So yeah, that's only one of the benefits.
Mm. Absolutely. And I love that they teach you to by being there, you feel more empowered to drop into your own vulnerability. I think that that's one of those masks that men in particular are taught to not wear. And it has done a complete disservice to men everywhere by not feeling like it's okay to have their feelings, and by clamping down on that voice that they want to have, and then their throat chakra gets blocked, as you mentioned. And I mean, you can see all sorts of physical ailments actually manifest from that. But yeah, I'm starting to watch particularly a lot of men around me dropping into their more vulnerable sides, and realizing that it's okay that they will be held in that space, that all hell doesn't all of a suddenly break loose just because you put a little something out there. And for me in my own practice, I try to show up very vulnerable in my life, and I share a lot of things on this podcast that are very personal. And I've just sort of, for me, learned that the more vulnerable I am, the more resilient become as well. And I think that's a really great new skill from kind of leaning into the fear around what could happen. And yeah.
Oh, totally. And that's the irony of, the more vulnerable you are, the stronger you are. That's, it's kind of an oxymoron there, but to
Mm,
be the ability for vulnerability requires a deep amount of strength.
yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Yeah,
totally.
it's funny you bring up the throat chakra thing too. I did a really big Bufo ceremony a few weeks ago, and it was so I mentioned that guy who I failed the test from the universe over, and this Bufo ceremony was kind of like right at the tail end of that, and I was like, "Whew, I need it. I need it. Please help me connect to source. I'm so lost right now." And I did 4 rounds of the Bufo that day. And the first round was actually a deep connection to my voice, because I realized as I came out of it and I started yelling, I started screaming, I started yodeling, I started like dropping into my voice, because I had started to feel like the people that I was interested in were silencing me along the way, just in those like previous 2 weeks. And um, I was like, I can't be silenced. I'm not meant to be silenced. If you're silencing me, then I can't continue to show up for you or for anyone. And to have to own that and to get back into that vulnerability, even if me speaking my truth means that I don't get what I want, like that's okay. At least it's spoken, and now it's free.
Totally.
But,
Yeah, I came across the meaning of the word expression the other month, but it's two-part: exit and pressure.
mm,
Expression, and I can totally resonate with that. But and you can feel it you when you have things that are stuck inside you. That pressure, that tension builds up, and just expressing your truth, your opinion, your feelings. It's kind of like when you have a difficult conversation with a friend, and you probably
mm,
there's that anxiety for a few days thinking about it, but as soon as you share it with one another, it's that huge relief, and it ends up often not being you end up sharing a big hug, and obviously things end up being okay, but it's just that point of that tension, that pressure that builds up within us, and as I'm sure it's that tension is going to lead to dis-ease, and then it's going to lead to physical disease eventually, and especially
mhm,
for people out there who haven't expressed themselves for many years or maybe a lifetime. That's just so debilitating, and you can see it in
mhm,
their posture perhaps, and how they carry themselves, and it's maybe something I'm just thinking out loud, but I'm sure it's just such a beautiful practice, is just expressing yourself. That's why I also enjoy kirtan as well, and singing. A lot of
mm,
this chakra activation. I don't know much about it, but it's definitely like something worth checking into. Um, I remember it sort of ties in as well with breathing and breath. And I
mhm,
remember a dear friend of mine um, was going through relationship challenges and work challenges and drama, and he went and saw a naturopath, and the naturopath
mm,
investigated his breathing at that time, and he was just breathing so shallowly, just very
mm,
shallow upper chest breathing, the first sort of third or quarter of his lung capacity, and they just stopped and paused and did 5 minutes of deep breathing, and he just felt all this tension. I think he started tearing up, and his body just
of course.
relaxed. He was just carrying so much tension and stress and anxiety, from all these things going on in his life, and it's all interrelated. Yeah.
Absolutely. I hold a mindfulness group every Friday morning that does holotropic breath work and a sound bath. And the other day, I had a woman in my class who was really struggling with anxiety and panic that had landed her in the hospital recently. And as I demonstrated with her how to breathe into the belly and then the chest and then out through the mouth. We sort of discovered together that she didn't know how to breathe into her belly. And something I do is sort of put my hand on the belly and I'm like, push it out, make my hand go out with your breath. And it was pretty incredible to watch how it took us a few minutes of her, like, she couldn't, her belly would actually go in when she tried to breathe into the belly. And yeah, we spent quite a few minutes getting her to breathe into her hand. And then I got to watch throughout the breathwork session as someone who was known to not be able to sit still actually found peace for the next 25 minutes or so. Um, to the point where she had even had like ice cubes, I think, to cause sensation on her hands. I'm not even entirely sure what that was about, but her hands became removed from the ice. Her legs stopped shaking, and I kept watching and making sure, but she was breathing into her belly and clearly having relief from things that she hadn't gotten to experience before. And I think we really don't pay enough attention to the breath. And I bet there's a lot of people out there who also don't know how to breathe. And if you're listening and you're one of them, place your hand on your belly, like just below where your rib cage ends in the middle, and try to breathe in to push it out. If you're not taking breaths into that space, then you are missing out on quite a bit of oxygen that your body needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Another piece of etymology is the meaning behind the word inspiration. To
Mm.
inspire, to inhale, to breathe, has the root word spire, which is spirit in Latin. So
Mm.
literally, to breathe, to inspire, is to connect with source. When that was a game changer for me when I found that out. But it was just like, yeah, totally. When you yeah, like it's there in the word. Take deep breaths and close your eyes and connect with the universe. It's in the word.
Hmm. Absolutely. And so, what are some of the other big things facing men in particular? I know there's a couple archetypes that men tend to fall into. There was a book that you just recently told me about. Called I ordered it. I have it on the kitchen table. Um, Tell me about it.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to get into the hero's journey as well with you after this.
Mm.
But the yeah, so something that's also really fascinating out there is what's called masculine archetypes. There's also feminine archetypes, and I've checked them out,
Hmm.
and they're also really amazing and cool. But yeah, so there's a famous book a few decades ago. It's called King Warrior Magician Lover by Robert
That's the
Moore
one I
and
ordered.
Douglas Gillette. Yeah, yeah, it's quite popular in that sort of subculture, and as the title of the book suggests, there are those four archetypes. And when I read it and thought about it, it's just really cool thing you can add to your toolkit as a man. And yeah, so as a man, you can tap into each one of those on an almost daily basis, or depending on different times or of the year or of your life or where you're at, and it's an integration of all four. So let's break them down in a bit more detail. But the first one is the warrior, and
Mm.
that warrior, whatever comes to mind throughout the mainstream culture and movies and literature and so on. And it is it's that masculine drive to penetrate the world. It's that sort of to harness positive aggression, to get up and go, to conquer. And today it manifests in so many ways. And it might be business, it might be,
Mm.
I'm going to do this project, I'm going to create this podcast, I'm going to go and work out, I'm going to go run a marathon, I'm going to write a book, and that's warrior energy. And
Mm.
there are obviously fields or career paths that tap into that warrior energy, the military or um, sport. Actually, sport's a great one where it's a lot of that masculine warrior type energy. It's interesting to note with all of these archetypes, there's the healthy version, and then there's the shadow
Mm.
element as well. So,
Yeah.
and that's why they also need to be integrated. So, for example, there's the healthy warrior, and you can think of certain movies or characters that come to mind, maybe such as the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter and some of these famous tales. But then there's also the shadow warrior. So someone maybe like the villains in a lot of these movies, for example,
Mm.
they're tapping into their inner warrior for sure, but it's for destructive purposes or for their own greed or whatever it is, um, yeah, for their own personal gain. So that's someone who hasn't necessarily integrated that warrior energy in a healthy way. So there's it's obviously there's lots to talk about, and there's lots of practices, but it's important to just once you're aware of these, you can sort of see what like, oh well, wow, the last few months I've been tapping into this, or maybe I need to integrate this part a little bit in a more healthier way. So for example, the
Mm.
lover, the lover is a beautiful archetype, which I really enjoy. But for example, maybe just a love of the arts, a love of reading, hanging out with friends, with family, with kids, going down to the ocean in the morning and catching that sunrise and just having that, that
Mm.
3 seconds where you're just, you know, feeling your body in the sun on your skin. That's all lover energy archetype type stuff.
Okay.
Romantically, is obviously a huge part of it as well. But um, the warrior, a healthy warrior, is also a healthy lover because he loves the world.
Mhm.
He's protecting the world. He's protecting his family, his community. So that's how you get out of that shadow element. That's the integration of all of them, is
Mm.
what I say. And then there's the magician. The magician is also, they're all equally powerful. The magician is the modern magician might be an entrepreneur or someone. It's when you have an idea in
Mm.
and you create it and manifest it in the world. It might be the creation of a website or a program. It might be a situation where you change the outcome of a situation through your words and through your magic, abracadabra and your
Mm.
energy. Um, it might be giving a speech or a whatever that there's so many different connotations to the magician, and then there's also of course the shadow element to the magician, to the lover. The shadow lover would be maybe the sex addict or the
Mm.
manipulator or whatever it is. Like there's so much to talk about with all these different archetypes. And then lastly is the king. So I suppose as the king in a lot of mythology is the integration of finally those three archetypes. He's a warrior,
Mm.
been a warrior, he's been a lover, he's a magician as well. I think of the pharaoh of Egypt. They were often like the high priests. They would often go into battle with their armies, and
Mm.
even if it's purely mythological, it's this individual, this man who's incorporated all of those archetypes and can tap into them. And yeah, so once I discovered those, it's just, as you can tell, like it's just so much cool knowledge and such rich knowledge and information. And it's like, oh wow, like I can tap into this or build this, or maybe I need a little more of this or that.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool to know about.
Yeah, and what a great tool too to be able to identify when your shadows pop up with it as well. So like, yeah, you can manifest anything, but are you manifesting it for good or are you harming people in the process? And like if you did a shady deal or if, someone really felt betrayed in something that you did, then perhaps that's a great opportunity to look at and be like, wow, how could I have done that, shown up as a healthier magician or shown up as a healthier lover or I love the king too because I kind of think of the shadow side of that as like a Donald Trump sort of character. He has assimilated that power and he's using it to disrupt society. And I use air quotes here, but also really, truly disrupt society in some of the worst of ways. And um, so, yeah, but these are all just, I think, beautiful tools and beautiful ways of being able to deeply do the work on our own selves.
Yeah,
And how do these lead you along the hero's journey?
yeah. Well, as it suggests, like a lot of these archetypes pop up in stories and
Mhm.
in myth and obviously now film and literature and so on and so forth. Um, and it ties in really nicely with what's called the hero's journey. So that's another really cool tool to add to your toolkit, is understanding the hero's journey. I'm not sure if you've just discussed it in depth to your listeners, but
Mhm.
again, it's just this the hero's journey. perhaps was originally devised or written about by a man, a mythologist named Joseph Campbell, and he wrote the book. I think it's called The Hero's Journey, and
Mhm.
he spent his lifetime just looking at all these myths and stories from around the world, from different millennia and across the oceans. So humans that didn't actually know that other humans existed and had, but what he found is that these stories shared similar themes, or one similar theme in particular, which is called the hero's journey. And very quickly, it's essentially the journey of a butterfly. It's
Mm.
there's the protagonist who's unsure about him or herself. He or she has this call to adventure at the beginning of the story, and however that may manifest in your life, a call to adventure. Maybe it's a call to go traveling, or a call to a certain career, or to leave a relationship, or run a marathon, whatever it is. It's a call to adventure. Then you accept the call, you go on the journey. You have it's sort of like the video game analogy. You have those mini battles, and you learn more about yourself, and you meet friends and allies. The Lord of the Rings is a famous story, hero's journey. The Lion King, all these Disney movies are essentially a hero's journey where, for example, Frodo goes off, he leaves the Shire, he takes his friends, his allies, he has these mini battles, he runs away, and he but along the journey, he's building his character, and he's gaining strength and knowledge and wisdom. And, he'll pick up a few amulets along the way, which is, metaphors as well, and his sword, and, whatever it is. Harry Potter is another really cool one. And then they'll have like their final battle, your final ordeal, the facing of the dragon. What is your biggest fear right now? That's your a final ordeal. That's your dragon that you need to face. And what happens is that the protagonist will overcome that ordeal and then return home. But like a butterfly, the original caterpillar has now turned into a mature and beautiful butterfly, as a
Mm.
healthy, thriving individual, and can return home with wisdom or knowledge, or it's often symbolic, through some sort of like the Holy Grail, or something like that. But it's just a metaphor for wisdom and knowledge, and self mastery, or whatever it might be, love, joy, happiness. So that's the hero's journey, very briefly. But once you the whole point is that you can apply it to your own life. Like, it's almost, and a really beautiful teaching is that this happens in nature. It's almost the design of the universe. You think of a seed.
Mm.
I love some of those giant trees, those redwoods, or Bodhi trees, or fig trees, or whatever it is. And they start off as these tiny seeds, and they have a call to adventure, and they find themselves in the soil somehow. And then they got to break through to the light, and they start off as a small tree, and then they got to fight, and fight animals and birds and other trees, and the storms and the wind, and then eventually they turn into these amazing trees. And another beautiful analogy is a turtle that's born on a beach in a shell.
Oh,
You know,
right.
as sure you've seen, got to crack out of the shell, and where do I go? And the ocean's somewhere down that way, and the sun's that way, and where am I? And this call to
Mm.
adventure, and then it got to scurry down through to the beach, and then obviously try and survive the ocean and make it to adulthood. It's a crazy, crazy hero's journey.
Right.
Um, so
Just
there's,
their first 5 minutes of life are like,
oh man,
"Ah, hero's journey.
crazy,
You're either staying in the game or you're not."
but you can obviously just apply this to literally probably any creature in the wild. But that was really cool, and I realized, like, oh, it's a design of the universe, the hero's journey. So my point is that, and this is what ancient people realized, is that we are on our own hero's journeys. Whether you know it or
Mm.
not, we are, and we're at a certain stage. Maybe right now there's a call to adventure. Something's calling you. People that we were in Peru with were on different stages of their journeys. Maybe you're in the middle of a
Oh, yeah.
battle. Maybe you're in the middle of a battle. Um, as you mentioned earlier, your sister might, it sounds like she's in the middle of a battle right
Mm.
now. Maybe some of us are on the journey home at the minute. We've just come out the end of some sort of journey, and we've got some love to share with the world. But the
Yeah.
beautiful thing as
And,
well is that it's cyclical. You know, it's one journey after the next after the next.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna say it is
there's never,
exactly like Lord of the Rings. It's a saga.
yeah, it's a saga. It's life, man, it's life.
Or Harry Potter.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
it's
keeps going.
beautiful. It just keeps going. Yeah, one journey, and then there's the next journey. You know, the next call to adventure, which is beautiful. You know,
Mhm. My mentor in the television and Hollywood world, his name's Terrence Michael, and he's an award-winning movie producer, TV producer, and he wrote a book called "Produce Yourself." And it is all about taking exactly that and applying it to be the hero of your own journey. And how, if you begin to look at your life as a Hollywood movie like Lord of the Rings, where you'll be able to find your falls, your shortcomings, what you can overcome, and how to find more strength in rising to those occasions and doing your personal growth. So, highly recommend everyone check out that book if you're looking for help on that path. And another thing I like that you pointed out to me when we were talking before this interview is that the hero's journey is also really applicable to the psychedelic journey. And I was like, oh, yep, yeah, we got to talk about psychedelics too. Um,
yeah.
but you explained it so well. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about you know, travel as well as a hero's journey as well. You know, like
Mm,
going to a different part of the world for the first time is a hero's journey. You know, you're sort of a call to adventure, and you're unsure, and there's going to be challenges, and you might get lost and dirty and lose your phone, and you know, people don't speak your
yeah.
language, and you know, it's another cool metaphor. Um, but yeah, look, obviously you're the you know, you're the expert on this one, but I don't have as many. Well, yeah, look, I have a little bit of experience, but it's, you know, the psychedelic practice or journey sitting is also very much a hero's journey.
Mm.
You know, you sort of especially I suppose for your first, maybe every time, but especially I suppose your first few times, you know, it's kind of like you know, you're nervous, you're anxious, you're not sure what's going to happen. You hear all these stories, but it's a call to adventure. You know, something within you is calling you. It's, you know, you want to explore your consciousness or tap into something, or it's just unanswered questions, and that's that call, that inner call. And then you know, I suppose you sit in ceremony, and you go on the adventure, on the ordeal, and maybe things come up. You know, I know you can speak to it probably more than I can, where you face maybe some real demons, and you
Mm.
have those massive battles, those internal those battles, and then yeah, the psychedelic journey is a really beautiful match for the hero's journey, isn't it? And then obviously the return home, you know, as the butterfly once more, with maybe some treasure or knowledge to share with the
Picked up a
world.
few jewels along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do love that parallel, that throughway, and I think depending on which plant medicine you're doing, the journeys can be so wildly different. I mean, every single time is different, but I know to relate it to like my first ayahuasca experience, um, I did like one cup and I didn't feel anything, and I was about to give up on it, and they offered a second cup, and I was like, I'm here, why not? I took a second cup, and then I really got the journey I was looking for, and it thrust me into the depths, all of a suddenly confronting my soul and confronting having to literally talk to my higher consciousness, which I had never done before, and getting to have like an open dialogue on why am I so sad? Like, why do I just wish that I could die every day? And ooh, you get in there and you start confronting something like that. And then to have my soul be like, I didn't want to be here right now. And I was like, what? Well, that souls came to life. We came here. We wanted to be put into this purpose. And I think there's a little bit of a lesser known, explored, and understood sect that when we get here, it feels so dissimilar to home and so unloving compared to where our soul came from that it can be really disruptive. Even if we came here, like I came here to be a really incredible healer, and gosh, part of my hero's journey is walking through that depression and walking through those suicidal tendencies and having to learn to overcome those to now see the beauty in life. But Jesus, the muck I've gone through to overcome some of those things. A lot of it coming up in plant medicine ceremonies, and yeah, getting to sit there and face it, and having the bravery to do so, and the vulnerability to sit with the tears, and that strength and that resilience to know that you can cry and it's going to be okay. And sometimes it takes a couple days to put the pieces back together. Sometimes it's okay the next day. Sometimes for people it takes a little longer, but you can find that support, and in the end, you get made stronger and more resilient.
Totally, yeah, and that's it's such an important part of the hero's journey. It's called the sometimes it's referred to the dark night of the soul, as I'm
Mm.
sure you've heard of, and or it's also referred to as the belly of the whale, um, which is the Pinocchio story. But it's that the moment in the movie where you're at the lowest point, where Simba is at his lowest point, or Harry Potter, or
Mm.
whoever it is, use your example. But it's just, we all go through that. Um, or if you haven't, you will. And that's just part of the curriculum, to
Yeah.
come back full circle, um, to sit in the mud and oh man, it's just, I think it's a Jung quote where it's, the tree with the highest branches also has the deepest roots. You have to go into the
Mm.
unconscious, under under the water. You have to go into those dark caves, and that's where that's the dragon's lair. That's where the gold is going to be found and discovered. Um,
Mm.
and that's, again, it's the call to adventure. It's like, we can sit on the couch and watch Netflix and have a comfortable existence, in my opinion, probably a mediocre one, and go to our jobs and so on and so forth. But that's not what the soul is here to do. We're here to experience. We're here to experience the highs and the lows, and that's what it's a big lesson on the spiritual journey. Is you realize that the lows are equally as valuable as the highs, if not more so. Um, it's just, yeah. Oh man, I love talking about this stuff, but it's just, obviously no one wishes to be in that situation at the time, but that's where the character is forged. Um,
Yeah.
no pressure, no diamonds. Is another beautiful
Yeah.
phrase. And just quickly, what I wanted to share with you as you were sharing that is, in a lot of these hero's journey myths, stories, the protagonist will have a weapon. Um, and that's also a really cool metaphor. And I really encourage people to, and I think of you is, what's your weapon? What's your weapon of choice?
Mm.
In a lot of myths, the Bhagavad Gita, for example, it's the bow and arrow. And Arjuna has a bow and arrow, and that's a metaphor for discipline and aiming at something and having a target. And you're going to miss the target. You got to practice
Mm.
daily, but eventually, you become a master of the bow and arrow, and that's a really beautiful metaphor. Obviously a very popular one is the sword, which is the sword of
Mm.
truth or discernment, and cutting the bullshit in my life or your life or whatever it is, cutting away at things. A shield. There's so many weapons. Another really good one is a wand. Um,
Mm.
a wand is I've read in esoteric texts, a metaphor for the spine and alignment, and again chakras. And a lot of those magicians, Gandalf or Merlin, would have his staff, and that's a metaphor for spiritual powers. That erect, aligned spine, integrity, truth. It's a beautiful metaphor as well. So, yeah, if
Mm.
for those listening, and yourself, Barrett, I encourage you to sort of, I know you've got your box of goodies probably behind you there somewhere, but what is I'd like to know, do you have a weapon? Like, what's your weapon?
I do. The first thing that actually came to mind as my weapon was actually love. I feel like love is my weapon. It's a beautiful repeller of negative energy. It's that which removes blockages from other people. It's what I send to all my clients to do my best work. So that was like the first thing that came to mind. But if we're going to talk physical objects, like I've got at least
Metaphorically,
like
but yeah.
two crystals here sitting next to me that I've been picking up and playing with throughout the time. So I think crystals are incredibly powerful tools. Another one that's been coming to me in the form of a not physical wand or physical sword, but it is the whistling and using the whistle as a weapon that essentially attacks energies like a sword. And something I learned just a couple months ago was how to wield that frequency in a way that took a negative energy and just sliced it and diced it until it went poof. And yeah, my last heroic dose of mushrooms a couple of weeks ago. My spirit guides came to me and were teaching me this interesting. I'm going to call it a blow technique, but like it's a blowing air out of the mouth, but making a ridiculous sound. And I don't know if this is going to like fuck up everybody's ears, but it was something like a, uh, like, yeah, I can't even, I could do it in the moment and I have yet to be able to recreate it, but it made this like incredible wind flap sound that was, sending the energies back from where I was, which is a powerful tool when it comes to battling other entities in that shamanic space. What's your
Awesome.
tool, Maddie?
I really, I read this and really liked the tool of a saddle. And I know it sounds not that exciting, but when obviously to use a metaphor, when a warrior is charging into battle on his horse, he's him or her is on a saddle, and I think of like a meditation sort of couch, or a little like seat and pillow, and it's just it's stability. It's a metaphor for stability, for equanimity, for calmness,
Mm,
and when life throws those storms at you, which it inevitably does. It's just to be able to sit in your saddle, so sort of charging in a battle again. And there's, like sort of like a Braveheart type scene or whatever. And you got sort of things are getting thrown at you and coming at you or whatever, but you can just stay strong in the saddle.
mm.
Is a really beautiful metaphor that I liked.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. You got me still thinking about my weapon, and I feel very grounded that it's love. It's like the thing I've been training to use my whole life. Have this incredible, I don't know if I guess I'm looking at it now as a positive, but like to get my heart broken, just shattered, I just always lean in so big and so open and then get so broken. And I always find myself returning to, okay, well, the next person's not the last person. And so let's just try it all over again. And finding that resilience with continuing to love despite the pain, continuing to love even when it doesn't suit me, continuing to forgive and hold love for others, even if I choose not to have them around anymore. There's still always love, and really learning to turn up that love frequency even when I don't feel like embodying it. Um, it is the tool that I continuously get lessons on how to tune and how to, yeah, wield.
Wow,
So
beautiful superpower.
yeah, I'll take it.
Amazing.
Yeah, well, we're sort of coming to an end here, but where can my listeners keep up with you?
Oh, Barrett, I'm not too like crazy in terms of things like that. Maybe probably just on the socials if anyone's interested. As you know, I post. I've started creating some cool little videos over the last couple, maybe 12 months or so, where I just share 2 or 3 minute little bits of wisdom every now and then. If anyone's interested, they can check those out. But that's on my Instagram, which is Matty J Powell. But that's pretty much it, really. I'm not sort of out there doing too many crazy things. I'm just living my own little life.
Mm.
Showing my love.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate the wisdoms that you're dropping into the universe and sharing with the world. I love watching them. You do often express your incredible wordsmithing abilities and breaking down the words and really showcasing them and their true meaning that resonates so deeply. And so I honor you and I honor the journey that you're on. And I'm so incredibly grateful that our paths have crossed and that we'll continue to be intertwined and continue to share in this journey.
Oh, amazing! Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in person again. Hopefully, in the next year or
Yeah.
two, and maybe I'll come over and check out the West Coast there and do a little sneaky trip and see you in person. I'm really looking forward to that, my love.
Yeah. Same. You're welcome here anytime.
Awesome,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
my absolute pleasure, and thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and review this podcast wherever you're listening. I'm so grateful to have you on this journey with me. Until next time.